The most troubling point from my point of view, and this is a point that most of the mainstream media has completely dodged or missed, is that, Joe Biden didn't simply reach out in consensus, some kind of civility to these Southern racist senators. It wasn't hard for him to reach out because he shared their views in the first place. He didn't just support legislation introduced by James Eastland or Jesse Helms. He thanked them for supporting his legislation and his own anti-busing legislation. He called busing asinine. And and worse than that, at one point he even came to the point of saying, I want to get his words exact, of saying, I've gotten to the point where I think our only recourse to eliminate busing is a constitutional amendment. Just stunning words. Last week he said he has no apologies. And the media, has quoted him repeatedly saying, I've been involved with civil rights my whole career. But this is simply, I don't know how to word this politely, but this is simply not the truth. To the extent that he's been involved with civil rights, it hasn't been as an advocate, it's been as an opponent. And, like other careful centrists, Biden threads the needle on the subject of diversity by saying that he favors it in principle. He simply opposes the only way in which to make it possible.
It's a legitimate concern. They should be skeptical. But the idea that somehow I've been told all along how young people don't think that I'm in the right spot, the right place, there is no polling evidence to sustain that, nor is there voting evidence thus far to sustain that. All I can say is, show me. Watch me. I'm listening. Watch what I do. Judge me based on what I do, what I say, and to whom I say.
Public listening to this, the senator made a very moving and eloquent speech as a son of the Confederacy.
They just drive here across the Robert C. Byrd Drive, the Robert C. Appalachian Highway, the Robert C. Library Learning Center, the Robert C. Byrd Clinic, the Robert C. Federal Building in Charleston, and on and on and on.
To a organization made up of many fine people who continue to display the Confederate flag.
Byrd joined with Democratic senators to filibuster the Civil Rights Act of 1964, personally filibustering the bill for 14 hours, a move he later said he regretted. Byrd cast no vote on the Voting Rights Act of 1965 and voted against the confirmation of Thurgood Marshall to the U.S. Supreme Court.
He mentioned that he once had a fleeting association with the Ku Klux Klan. What does that mean? I'll tell you what it means. He was a country boy from the hills and hollows of West Virginia. He was trying to get elected. And maybe he did something he shouldn't have done.
I shall never fight in the armed forces with a Negro by my side. Rather, I should die 1,000 times and see Old Glory trampled in the dirt, never to rise again, than to see this beloved land of ours become degraded by race mongrels, a throwback to the blackest specimen from the wilds. Robert C. Byrd, 1944.
Almost impossible to imagine the United States Senate without Robert Byrd. He was not just its longest serving member, he was its heart, its soul, and its historian.
Aren't you a living example?
I am an anachronism. I'm a 29-year-old oddball. The only reason I was able to raise the money is I was able to have a national constituency to run for office. Because I was 29, I'm like the token black or the token woman. I was the token young person.
We're talking about this national constituency.
Because you're all going to stand up. We're going to have some important people coming out in a minute. But there's one more band member that I want you to meet. Ladies and gentlemen, our vocalist tonight, Michael Jackson. Michael, would you please stand? Thank you.
Hard to believe, but this very day, violent drug offenders will commit more than 100,000 crimes on this day alone. And the sad part is that we have no more police in the streets of our major cities than we had 10 years ago. And what the president proposes won't help much. What he proposes is no increase over what the Congress has already approved last year. In a nutshell, the president's plan doesn't include enough police officers to catch the violent thugs, not enough prosecutors to convict them, not enough judges to sentence them, and not enough prison cells to put them away for a long time.
The person that is accosting your son or daughter or my son or daughter, my wife, your husband, my mother, your parents. It doesn't matter whether or not they were deprived as a youth. It doesn't matter or not whether or not they had no background that enabled them to become socialized into the fabric of society. It doesn't matter whether or not they're the victims of society. The end result is they're about to knock my mother on the head with a lead pipe, shoot my sister, beat up my wife, take on my sons. So I don't want to ask what made them do this. They must be taken off the street. That's number one. There's a consensus on that. Unless we do something about that cadre of young people, tens of thousands of them, born out of wedlock, without parents, without supervision, without any structure, without any conscience developing, because they literally, I yield myself 3 more minutes, because they literally have not been socialized. They literally have not had an opportunity. We should focus on them now. If we don't, they will, or a portion of them will, become the predators 15 years from now. And Madam President, we have predators on our streets that society has, in fact, in part because of its neglect, created. Again, it does not mean because we created them that we somehow forgive them or do not take them out of society to protect my family and yours from them. They are beyond the pale, many of those people. Beyond the pale. And it's a sad commentary on society. We have no choice but to take them out of society. And the truth is, we don't very well know how to rehabilitate them at that point. That's the sad truth. I'm the guy that said, rehabilitation, when it occurs, we don't understand it and notice it.
Bobby Rush, member of Congress, said the other day, I'm ashamed that I voted for the '94 crime bill. You ashamed of that bill?
Not at all.
They're going to put you all back in chains.
What was the 1 or 2 issues that most disappointed you or surprised you as far as President Obama is concerned and caused you to leave his side?
Wolf, I have to tell you, I don't have to go any further than 24 hours ago. When I heard the Vice President of the United States, someone I grew up admiring, someone I've been on platforms with, when I heard him go to Danville, Virginia, and talk about politics in a way that no serious candidate ought to talk about it, when I heard him reach the bottom of the deck and talk about one party putting people in chains, when I heard someone that I admired and have been on platforms with talk about ordinary conservative principles as being essentially racial viciousness, because that's the allegation he was making yesterday, I was disappointed by it, but I have to tell you, it brought back memories to me. It brought back memories of these Democratic politicians in the South who think they can go before black crowds and say one thing, that nobody else will hear it, and that they can somehow get a cheer in the room, and that they can blithely go on about their business. That's not the way you can do politics anymore because of the media, and I think Vice President Biden, I hope Vice President Biden, learned an important lesson. You can't say one thing to a certain kind of people thinking nobody else is hearing it.
Well, there were TV cameras there. I assume he knew that everyone would be watching an event like this. It wasn't just simply a closed-door event, but what the campaign, the Obama campaign, says is he was simply referring to what Republicans have said, that they want to, quote, unshackle big business in the United States and get rid of many of the regulations, and he was responding to that. Does that make sense to you?
Wolf, I know that's the spin and it's creative. I'll give him credit for creativity, but I happen to have spoken to a few African American audiences in my time, represent a predominantly African American district. I know what Joe Biden was doing yesterday, and every black person in that room knew who the y'all was. They knew what the chains were about. They knew what the metaphor was, and I will give that audience credit. If you listen to a tape of that audience, you actually hear what appear to be boos or what appears to be shock from some people in that audience. That says a lot that is very good about people in that audience, that when Joe Biden went to a place he never should have gone, that instead of getting the cheers he just knew he'd get, he got a negative reaction from a lot of the African Americans in the room. That doesn't lift up Joe Biden or excuse his comments, but it says something positive about people in that audience.
Well, let me just be precise before we move on. What are you saying that this represents, this underscores, as far as the vice president is concerned?
It's a divisive tactic that's insulting to African Americans. It's insulting to the American people. It's an insult to the legacy that he used to build up as an orator who knew how to inspire people instead of strike fear in people's hearts. And it ought to embarrass President Obama. President Obama has talked so movingly about our country moving beyond race, and his own vice president makes this kind of comment yesterday. It was wrong, and the president ought to be embarrassed by it, and the president ought to say it was wrong.
I mean, you got the first sort of mainstream African American who is articulate and bright and clean and a nice looking guy. I mean, that's a storybook, man.
I mean, you'd have to ask Senator Biden what he was.
Hours after he made these comments to CNN, Senator Obama released a statement saying, quote, "I didn't take Senator Biden's comments personally, but obviously they were historically inaccurate."
Former vice president under fire after citing the work he did with segregationist senators as an example of the civility that used to exist in Congress. Speaking at a fundraiser in New York City Tuesday night, Biden told the crowd this: "I was in a caucus with James O. Eastland. He never called me boy. He always called me son. Herman Talmadge, one of the meanest guys I ever knew. Well, guess what? At least there was some civility. We got things done We didn't agree on much of anything, but we got things done. Many 2020 contenders, including Elizabeth Warren and Kamala Harris, quickly responded to Biden's comments, suggesting that he was celebrating segregationists. Senator Cory Booker went one step further, asking Joe Biden to apologize. But it does not seem like an apology is coming anytime soon. Last night, while speaking to reporters before a campaign event in Maryland, Biden doubled down on his comments.
How does it feel that your Democratic rivals are implicitly saying that you have issues talking about race?
They know better.
Are you going to apologize like Cory Booker has called for?
For what?
Cory Booker's called for it.
Cory should apologize. He knows better.
That answer did not satisfy Senator Cory Booker.
What matters to me is that a guy running to be the head of our party, which is a significantly diverse and wondrous party, doesn't understand or can't even acknowledge that he made a mistake. Whether the intention was there or not, he knows better.
I have more people supporting me in the black community that have announced for me because they know me. They know who I am. 3 former chairs of the Black Caucus, the only African-American woman that ever been elected to the United States Senate, a whole range of people.
No,
my point is
that's not true. The other one is here.
I said the first. I said the first African-American elected. First African. So we have this notion that somehow if you're poor, you cannot do it. Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids. Wealthy kids, black kids, Asian kids. No, I really mean. I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't black.
It don't have nothing to do with Trump.
We, the citizens of America, are now joined in a great national effort to rebuild our country and restore its promise for all of our people. Together, we will determine the course of America and the world for many, many years to come. We will face challenges. We will confront hardships, but we will get the job done. For too long, a small group in our nation's capital has reaped the rewards of government, while the people have borne the cost. The forgotten men and women of our country will be forgotten no longer. What truly matters is not which party controls our government, but whether our government is controlled by the people. Every decision on trade, on taxes, on immigration, on foreign affairs will be made to benefit American workers and American families. We must protect our borders from the ravages of other countries, making our products, stealing our companies, and destroying our jobs. America will start winning again, winning like never before. At the bedrock of our politics will be a total allegiance to the United States of America. And through our loyalty to our country, we will rediscover our loyalty to each other. We must speak our minds openly, debate our disagreements honestly, but always pursue solidarity. Do not allow anyone to tell you that it cannot be done. No challenge can match the heart and fight and spirit of America.